Good morning. Welcome to the morning show right here at Youth Voice Week 2021. We are running from the 4th of October to the 8th, all week programming events and talks and panels that will hopefully inspire you in your participation and your journey with working with young people. My name is Anna-Marie. I am your host for today, and today we are talking about money. If you hear random scratching noises in the background, that's my cat. Please just ignore him. He's being very active today. So yes, our topic today is money talks. And we have an all-woman lineup today, women that have been working in the industry, in their organizations that work with young people and working to compensate young people correctly. So get your notepads and pens ready. We have got a lot in store. If you are watching from YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure if you have any questions, pop it in the chat box, in the live chat, and I will read them out live on camera. So if you are tuning in, just say hey. Youth Voice on Demand has just said hi everyone. So give us a thumbs up, give us a smiley face, and let us know that you are tuned in. So I'm going to bring our speakers to the stage. We have Sarisha Kumar, who is a talent and development manager at Poet in the City. Excuse the cat tail. We have Dilys Winkerton, who's the head of grants at Youth Futures Foundation. We have Leslie Ann Russell, who is innovation and strategic grant making manager at BBC Children in Need. And then we have Grace from North Yorkshire Music Action Zone. Welcome to the stage, ladies. How is everyone?
Good, thanks.
All on mute.
Great, thank you.
Great to be here.
Great. And I think another thing that I mentioned is that we've got all women today, so this is very, very exciting. Nice to see you all. A couple of shout outs. Hi, Izzy Taylor. She says hi everyone from China Plate Theatre. Elijah Femi welcomes, giving us a thumbs up. Great. Nice to see you all here today. So we are going to get stuck right in. We do have an overarching question. This cat, I'm sorry about the cat. He is just doing his own thing right now. Our overarching question today, we're going to be talking about what the best measures to compensate young people when it comes to money and their work. But before we get into that, I'd like everyone to talk a little about themselves and their organizations and the work that you do. So first, I'll go to you, Grace.
Hiya, I'm Grace Nill. I work for NIMAS. I'm the Programme and Networks Manager there. NIMAS is a youth music development charity that champions the transformative potential of music in young people. We are based in North Yorkshire, as our name kind of says, but we do work beyond North Yorkshire now as well. I'm the lead on our Youth Voice and youth-led projects, which includes our own programme called Plugged In, and I have a background in music education and community music projects, which has led into this kind of work.
Great, thank you. I'll go to Dilys next.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Dilys Wintercorn and I'm Head of Grants at the Youth Futures Foundation. And a bit about the foundation, we're new, established 2 years ago, and we're in the business of investing in testing, conducting research and generating evidence on youth employment solutions in England. And so, we invest in programs that work and try to draw on evidence as to, what works for young people and getting them good, meaningful employment. When I'm not working, I conduct research in philanthropy and advise in that area.
Great to hear. Thank you for being here. Next, Sarisha.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarisha. I'm the head of talent at Poet in the City. Poet in the City is a producer of poetry shows, community commissions, and talent development. We connect people and places through poetry and work in 3 ways. So through events which inspire, entertain and change the narrative about the world that we live in, commissions which animate places and histories through community collaboration, and talent development, which is what I lead on, where we train the next generation of poetry producers through our Young Producers Programme, and set up something called the National Producers Task Force, which is about tackling the challenges the industry face in hiring young people and young producers.
Right. And Leslie Ann.
Cool. So I'm the innovation lead for BBC Children in Need. And as part of that, I've got all participation work we do under our wing. So we're just at the start of a journey about working with young people. As a funder, BBC Children in Need works with young people from ages of 0 to 18, but with really diverse backgrounds across that spectrum. So all sorts of touch points with young people, as opposed to those who are actually out in the world.
I'm sorry, I believe we lost you at the end there on your microphone. Would you mind repeating the last sentence?
I would say generally the group of young people we're working with are within school age as opposed to actually in the workplace. So just for the context of today's discussion.
Thank you. And of course, we have our British Sign Language interpreter, Liz, I believe. Yeah? Linda, sorry, not Liz. How are you doing? I hope you are well. Okay, let's crack on with the show. I am very excited to be talking to all of you. It seems like you do fantastic work in your fields. So our overarching question, which we are solving today, is what is the best practice when it comes to money and compensating young people appropriately? So we'll go through each of your organizations. You can tell us a little bit about what you do in how you compensate young people appropriately. So I'll start with you again, Grace.
So in our programme, this mainly leads with our youth-led and youth voice programme, which is called Plugged In. This is a programme that was actually built in consultation with young people themselves. So everything that is feeding into our programme is through discussions with young people. We do several different things. We do a create, a learn and a collaborate kind of pathway, so young people can join it at any point, and they can take part in workshops weekly where they get to take part in different areas of industry that they're interested in. They can also then move into the create element, which is where they can create their own projects, working with friends and working with industry specialists to kind of develop and build their own projects. And then we've got a collaborate section, which is where they pitch an idea for funding from us to deliver and run their own project themselves. So obviously each area of that programme kind of leads to different compensation and interaction from ourselves. So the learn is very much weekly workshops for younger people who kind of come along and are starting on exploring their musical journey and learning with us. So in terms of that, it's much more just a kind of interaction phase. But when it moves into create and collaborate, that changes. So with our create programme, we have something called Rural Fest, which is a festival that we deliver every year at the moment on Make Music Day, and which is led by young people, and they kind of programme and design and develop that. When we first started that programme, we didn't actually provide any bursaries or grants for young people. It was they signed up to do like specific job roles that led into that kind of project. And what they got from it was mentoring with an industry professional from that specific job role, and then kind of led into group work together and building expertise. And they got pods, which is a professional opportunities and development group. So they got to go along to that and have additional training in their specialism, and then put on this festival. We noticed during the first delivery round of that our young people were giving so much to the programme, and we felt that we wanted to have a conversation about how they felt about that, and whether they felt they needed compensating in additional ways to just the mentoring and the kind of industry professional levels that they were getting currently. And that's how we led the programme into a bursary, which went out this year. So each role had a bursary assigned to it that the young people were paid, which was based on the living wage, on the number of hours that they were going to be putting in for their job role. So each job role had a different level of expectation and roles. And yeah, that's how that leads. And then obviously the Collaborate, they pitch for their own funding and we pay them based on their own budget. And that kind of breaks down into living wage payments or payment for their own special tasks and ideas, but also they budget for different events that they're going to be taking. So that's how we kind of lead with that.
Okay, great. Well, that's all right. I wanted to ask, what age range are you working with?
So we work with 11 up to 25, and it's split into two groups. So 11 to 16 kind of join us with the learn and create elements of the project. 16 to 25 join us at the create to collaborate.
Very interesting, great to hear. I'll move on to you, Dilys. How are you practicing compensating young people?
Yeah, I mean, at Youth Futures Foundation, Youth Voice is at the heart of what we do. And, I don't mean that just as rhetoric. We have, in terms of the positions within our organisation, at board level, exec level, we have 2 youth members who are paid non-exec directors. We also have a Future Voices group, a group of 12 members of young people between the ages of 16 to 24. And what they do, they're a group that are, they inform a lot of our strategy. They work with each of our departments, of which we have a strategy department, a grants and investment department, as well as research. They inform a lot of that work. And each of those 12 members are also paid. The reason we pay young people is that, in short, in terms of the expertise, the skills, the specialism, the time, and the dedication, any other member of staff, if they weren't, categorized as a young person, would be paid. And so that mandate really flows through into our Youth Voice work. We are a living wage employer. And so in terms of all of the young people we work with, they come under that category also. Also within our payment system, we also do training and development. So each member of our Future Voices group will be trained by a member of our team in areas of fundraising, making grants, designing grant programs, as well as, youth voice strategy and development. And so, yeah, in a nutshell, we do pay young people. We see it as best practice, taking into account all of the skills that a young person offers. What I saw, years ago, 10 years ago, so we show my age, you would have a lot of programs, put on where, for instance, surveys being sent out for young people, wanting information from young people, boards or roles being developed for young people, but very few of them were actually monetized or compensated. And I've certainly seen a change, certainly in the last 5 years, where those sort of roles are being compensated, whether it's salaried or by way of vouchers.
Great, thank you for that. Sorry about that. I'm really trying to focus. What the cat's just putting his bum in my face. Okay, we'll move on to Sarisha. Let's hear from you.
So we have a young producers training program, which we've been running in London since 2017, so between 2017 and 2020. And that was a year-long free training program for young people. And from that, the work that was produced, we never, as a principal, kind of build it as young or youth scheme. It was work that we were always, happy to put out as Poet in the City. And so now we've been able to fundraise so that any future delivery of our producers program this year in Newcastle and Exeter, the producers are going to be paid for the professional work that they deliver at the end, which we're really happy that we've been able to integrate this year. And moving forward, that's our key principle and what we advocate for with our partners in terms of paying young people for the work that they produce. Also, young person, that could be under 25 or it could be under 30, and everyone has the same expenses. Everyone has expenses regardless of what age you are. So we really are keen to ensure that that's recognised, and any work with young people or emerging artists or early career artists is appropriately compensated. Alongside that, with the work on the task force, the National Producers Task Force, we recognise that there's no standard rate card at the moment for producers in the industry. So it's something that we're trying to work on, whether that's something that we create or something that we are able to advocate for, especially for, again, young and early career producers, so that they're able to advocate for themselves in terms of negotiating pay as freelancers. If there's a standard rate card for early career producers, at least there's a recognized industry standard that people can signpost employers to, alongside kind of ensuring that young people are properly paid a wage. We also ensure that there are development opportunities, training opportunities, and that appropriate support and pastoral care is offered alongside employment and working with young people, ensuring that the team or the organisation that's working with young people have the capacity to support someone who might be in their first job, and understand that it's changing the narrative around risk to opportunity of working with young people, and so that payment is offered kind of alongside a program of appropriate training and space to learn and develop that in that role. And also there's onwards opportunity, so always ensuring that entry level roles have progression opportunities, or there are sustainable career pathways available for young people coming off of training schemes, which is what we advocate for with our work on the task force.
Hey, it sounds like a lot that you guys are definitely have got a strong infrastructure in place, which is super great to hear. And lastly, we'll move on to Leslie Ann. Let's hear about your practices at BBC Children in Need.
Yeah, so in terms of Children in Need, we're working with young people through things like filmmaking work around our appeal show. We've worked with 2 groups of young people to design grant-making programmes, and over the summer, young people have helped us design our new strategy as well. So I think it's been a really interesting journey for that 0 to 18 group, because actually we've taken a lot of consultation with youth workers about how they reward young people and what that should look like, and how we should kind of respond, in line with that. And a lot of the feedback we got from youth workers and young people themselves was actually young people didn't want to be paid, and actually to some extent that was a real surprise for us, because actually we wanted to be able to reward them and actually to reflect the work they were doing. So we've kind of come to a place where we've kind of built a graduated reward framework. So things that are very light touch, we're going to reward with soft rewards, experiences, some of the kind of a magic that goes with the BBC, but also be able to support with things like references, CV content, support, mentoring, things like that. But it's actually as we graduate up the scale and young people are involved in work, which equates to consultancy work, actually that should be fully rewarded as part of that. At the moment, our position, because Children Need sits under the big BBC HR banner, we can't pay a salary award for young people in terms of freelancers at the moment. So we're having to go down the voucher route with them. I think we have quite a lot of flexibility within the voucher route and be able to reward with that and reflecting the living wage within that. Cash becomes a little bit problematic for us, because actually we would be forced under our HR framework to actually put young people onto freelance contracts. And with that comes responsibilities for tax or benefit implications for young people, where we actually are not necessarily at this stage able to support young people to be able to work and navigate through that correctly. And if we want to move into cash, we genuinely want to be able to support young people to navigate those challenges as well. So we're just kind of all working through it. But I think for the under 18s, it's predominantly vouchers, recognising the living wage, and also to actually being really clear that if young people are investing significant time or having significant strategic impact in the work we're doing, they should be awarded accordingly. And then at the other end of the scale is actually some of the young people under sort of at primary school age has been an interesting dilemma for us about actually how do you reward and pay young people at that stage. And actually the feedback we took from youth workers actually is quite often group reward might be more appropriate for younger groups. So in terms of do we pay for a trip to the Panto for 20 kids as opposed to pay every kid, for the equivalent of a couple of hours work, something that, and actually how do we put some soft stuff around that so it's just an interesting experience and they feel that they're valued within that. But I think it's not been easy territory for us to navigate, and we're trying to work with other funders to try and just appreciate what best practice is, look at where the points of tension are, look where we can share best practice.
Great. It seems like a lot of thought has gone into the infrastructure that you are building at the BBC. That leads me to my next question. Leslie Ann, you mentioned that, working with kids in primary school level, so you might be giving them vouchers or different methods of compensation. Dilys, you mentioned that you're a living wage company, so that's standard. So how do you price or come to a consensus of what the right amount, what's the fair rate a young person should be paid? Is that by age? Is it about like the qualifications or work that they're doing? How do you in your organizations come to that conclusion? Anyone can jump onto that. Maybe we'll go to you, Grace.
Always me first.
When we come to me on the screen.
When we come to kind of those discussions, we discuss it with the young person who's taken on the role, but we've already kind of listed out the expectations that we're wanting from the role, which comes under time, the effort and time that we know and dedication that it's going to take for that young person. So in the context of, say, Rural Fest, you've got the musical producer who's overseeing the whole project. Their time and dedication and level of interaction and responsibility actually within that whole project is a lot higher than somebody who's only going to be needed on the day as kind of a runner for the festival. So the way we work it is the number of hours that we're asking them to do and deliver. And we work that out on the living wage because we're a living wage company as well. So we balance that out with that, and the bursary that we give is equivalent to the number of hours we're expecting them to have. And on top of that, we provide for free the whole holistic element where they've got an individual mentor, which supports them throughout their whole journey on that specific job role. They are also covered for their time that they take to do those mentoring programs. So when I talk about the hours that we're expecting them to be involved, it includes the hours that they're having their mentoring is included in their bursary, not just the hours that they're going to be working specifically on the project. And yeah, we work it out based on time and living wage. It doesn't really I don't think at that age it matters whether someone has more experience than another person. If they've got the skill set and the desire to take part, they deserve to be compensated fairly for that. And I think that should be equal across that age range.
Great. How about you, Sarisha?
Really similar. So we work out based on like a day rate, a freelancer day rate, and benchmark that against different kind of other projects that we run or different industry standards. It doesn't matter what age the person is that we're working with, we'll pay them the same rate as we would another freelancer for the work that they're doing based on how many days we think it will take, and then also additionally cover travel expenses on top of that. And if there are things like meetings or consultation that we'd like young people to be a part of, either separate to a project or in addition to a project, we pay either London Living Wage or depending on how many meetings they'd be part of, we pay for them to attend meetings and consultation as well.
That's great. I wish I got paid to attend meetings when I was young. That would have been great. Okay, let's talk about like holistic support on the whole with working with young people. I know, Grace, you mentioned that there's mentorship programs, so they're assigned a mentor. What are some of the other ways when you're working with young people that that you make sure that they feel supported?
So they always have direct contact with myself. I'm the pastoral lead at NIMAS for any kind of youth-led project that we do, and any kind of young project that NIMAS delivers. I'm the key person that they all have contact with. They know that they can contact me either by mobile or by email, and I'll help them out as much as I can, or I'll pass them into the support of somebody who's a specialist in that area that can help them. And that goes through all levels of the kind of projects. So they always have me as a point of contact. Then we also, like I mentioned, we have the one-to-one mentoring for specific roles. So they develop that kind of relationship with an industry professional in the area that they're wanting to actually explore themselves to move forward professionally. And that's normally weekly over a series of months. And if they would like to continue that and develop it further, we offer that, and then we find funding to put that in place for them. On top of those things as well, outside of kind of projects, they send through CVs or job applications that they're wanting help to be supported in. So the journey never really ends with our projects. It's always kind of supporting them even onto the next step is what's really important, and giving them the time to do that and know that they can. So we have several people who were part of the first Rural Fest who have gone through the different projects with us. They've done Rural Fest, they've then created their own project which we've funded, and then they've moved on to a professional career. And even now they still contact us to support them either with funding applications or for some guidance, or if we can put them in touch with anyone. So it kind of moves with them with whatever they need. And we assign either specialists that are going to help them, or they contact myself or our director, Sarah, as well, who is really active in that area as well of support. So that's how we kind of holistically lead it.
Great to hear. And now I'll ask you, Dilys, so what kind of holistic support in your organization are you using to work with young people?
Yeah, I mentioned the Future Voices group. In terms of another member of our team who's strategy officer, he's also an apprentice. In terms of the support that is offered, for instance, with the Future Voices group, they are supported by my colleague Devon, who is strategy officer apprentice. He co-leads on the management of the group. And when I talk about management, it's ensuring that all the members are supported, they are also delivering against their activities. And in terms of the support and what that looks like, each member of the Future Voices group has a buddy, as you like, with a member of Youth Futures. And through that buddying system for a period of time, you will, for instance, I have worked with 6 of the members, and with those 6 members for the year, I'm supporting them to look at, okay, what do you want to learn about fundraising or funding itself? and take them through just training, really, take them through the stage of designing a program, also being on hand outside of, formal working hours through WhatsApp, in case they've got any concerns, or if they want time outside of the working day, one-to-one, to spend time one-to-one with them to talk through work that's taking place, and also to hear through their ideas, being on hand to hear about what career progression looks like for them. I've been asked lots of times, particularly by some of the young Black women, as to what my journey has been career-wise. So I guess being on hand in that respect. Also with the Future Voices group in terms of support. There are away days. I know it sounds really formal and corporate, but there are days where the group will go away for a weekend, and really just to build a team dynamic. And it's also a space for them to share. In terms of what we're trying to do, the Future Voices group, it's about embedding their youth voice into our activities, but also alongside that, it's about career progression. And so a lot of the support that we offer is about, how they're getting on with work and also with study, and how we can progress them in employment. And that's why we have members of the group who are attached to different departments, because they've identified a department they want to work with based on, where they see themselves in the future. And so the support is very much around that training into those roles. Other support is through our partner, the British Youth Council. The British Youth Council are fantastic in terms of building youth voice, and the Youth Council is there to support the young person in terms of equipment. There may be tech equipment that the young person needs, in terms of proficiency in using the tech. British Youth Council again is there, and some of the young people work with may have other issues that they want to share or not, in terms of dyslexia. So British Youth Council is very much on hand to support with those personal issues.
Thank you for that. We'll come to you, Sarisha, as well, with the same question. What holistic support goes along with working with the young people at your organisation?
Yeah, so I think just really similar in that for the young producers that we are working with currently as a cohort, it's about kind of one-to-one mentoring, connecting them with different mentors or guest speakers from areas that they identify that they want to develop more in. Ensuring that there's pastoral support, so either that's me or the program coordinator running the program, and also kind of after the producers finish their program with us, keeping in touch with alumni and seeing where we can offer additional support and training. So the kind of employability skills that you might not get off a producers training program, like how to register as self-employed with HMRC, what an invoice is and how to do one and how to send one. So kind of a lot of our work is about, a lot of the additional work that we do is about addressing that kind of gap between training and employment, and how we can help to develop those additional skills. We also, when we have kind of jobs and roles available for our projects, we always offer them out to our pool of producers alumni, and sometimes we when we're fundraising for a new project, we'll add a budget line in that enables us to take on a junior producer or an early career creative in a role, and as part of that we offer mentoring, support and training whilst they're working with us in that role. And on kind of the other side of that, we also want to work and are working with our colleagues from different partner organisations about how they can change hiring practices, and look at different recruitment policies, and to kind of make on the flip side, how can we as employers employ young people, be employers of young people in a better way?
Great stuff, thank you. And I'll come to you lastly, Lezianne.
Yeah, so Give me the question again, I've forgotten.
It was what holistic support goes along with working with young people.
Right, and I think children need to actually draw our young people from all the projects we fund as a funder. So actually we've got a shared pastoral model where we work with youth workers from the host projects where young people are drawn from. So I think, if you think about who children need typically funds, it's young people with quite challenging backgrounds or facing health or social disadvantage. So actually what we need to be clear is that the youth workers really know their young people way better than we could ever get to know them, but actually how do we work alongside the youth workers to give them the experience, young people the experience of working with children in need, but actually the youth workers who are on the ground can be with them kind of 24 hours a day to give that support. And I think all our work has been conducted through the pandemic, so everything's been done online. And I think we've never actually met young people in a room. It's really challenging to kind of know exactly what's going on with them. So actually having that secondary fallback position of having host youth workers in place who know the young people can pop into the youth club to talk to their youth worker if something's bothering them. We work back and forth with the youth workers. If a young person doesn't turn up for a session or we've got a concern, we'll feed it back to the youth worker so they can pick up with the young person or the young person's parent to make sure that there's really good wraparound support for the young person as part of that. I think, we offer training kind of sporadically from what we've done so far, and that's been more useful to learn from. So the pieces of work we're building for the end of 22, beginning of 2023, it's going to be much more structured about what we put in terms of training programmes. So we're looking at bringing a partner in, possibly British Youth Council or somebody similar who can deliver very structured training for young people so they've got real tangible takeaways as well as the experience itself. And some of the things we need to think about, what can we leverage out of the BBC is added value experiences. So the group I've got who were working on some of the I Will design principles, we did some work with our coach who runs the Rickshaw Challenge for the One Show about speaking to camera and being confident speaking to camera and managing your nerves. And it was a real masterclass session that, young people wouldn't necessarily get access to somebody at that level within the BBC through normal channels. So we want to just try and build in some of those really special experiences, just to give it a bit of extra sparkle, but also, in terms of the BBC's own responsibility of working with young people, about actually how do they play some of that back, about interacting with young people and encouraging them and actually allowing them to aspire to what they could achieve.
Great, that sounds like great all-round support that you have. I'm going to throw this to Dilys and Lesley-Anne as you spoke about grants and things like that. So what do you expect from grantees and how would you encourage them to think about paying or reimbursing young people? Either one of you can go, Dilys or Lesley-Anne.
Yeah, I'm thinking on my feet here. I think it's interesting because obviously we're building a project at the moment, and actually we're having a discussion about what can and should people be able to apply for in terms of that programme funding. And actually, so far, nobody's raised should actually young people be paid for their time taking part in that. So I think that's a good prompt to go back and say, actually, that if young people are building and running a project for themselves with, under the support of a youth worker, actually should we recognise young people's time as part of that and actually allow something for that. So I think that's a fair challenge to us about how we see young people.
Mm. Yeah, I think adding, similar to what Lesley-Anne said, is the approach that we take at eFutures, and there's also interrogating the budget. When you receive an application, there's usually a budget line assigned to say young youth activities, and so we interrogate that. What does it mean? What does it look like? What are the activities? How many young people? What type of engagement do you expect from them? How have you built this work that you're applying for with the young people? It's very much about probing and interrogating to find out what the youth voice looks like in that project and for the organisation itself. In terms of encouraging organisations to pay, we do advocate living wage. And we understand that all organisations are different, however, in terms of how they compensate young people. And so what we do push best practice is to compensate, but not necessarily the how. And yeah, it goes back to probing the budgets and the application itself.
So a lot of probing, a lot of question asking. Great. Okay, so those of you who are watching from home, be sure to put a question in the chat box if you've got any burning question, and I'll be sure to answer in the next 15 minutes. So a question that I'm quite interested in is how do you prioritize well-being, and how do you create nurturing environments for the young people that you work with? I'll come to you, Sarisha.
I think it's something that we're thinking about a lot at the moment, especially over the last kind of 18 months, being isolated from each other and only kind of interacting through a screen, and how we continue to prioritize well-being throughout this. And I think what we found is really important, and I'm sure everyone might have found similar, is kind of not prioritizing the outcome, and kind of more prioritizing the process, and being really understanding that everyone's living situations and environmental conditions are so different at the moment. Kind of building in more space to be mindful of that, rather than pushing ahead with certain deadlines or things that need to be delivered. So doing that, and also regular check-ins that have nothing to do with work or task, or a task-based kind of personal development check-ins, how we use, and just kind of knowing that and being mindful that everyone's situations are different, so it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all when it comes to well-being, but we're trying to ensure that well-being is the top of the list at the moment.
Great, that's really, really great to hear. How about you, Grace?
When it comes to well-being in NIMAS, it's always at the heart of our work, just the same as Youth Voices, really. And I suppose how we've been going about it in the last year, because everything that we've done had been online, we made sure that we gave time and opportunity for young people to either opt in or opt out of online chats, either with the video on or off and things like that. But also just checking in, very similar to Sarisha, that just checking in that how they are on a general basis, nothing to do with the project or anything that we were expecting of them, just so that it kind of built that relationship, because it's a lot harder to do that through a screen than it is when you're in person. So kind of building that environment of a nurturing relationship between ourselves as a team at NIMAS and our young people that we're working with, so that they feel safe, that they can voice their opinions, they can voice what's worrying them, and if it's having an impact on the project itself, they feel that they can come and tell us that, and that we can support them through those different areas for them. So I suppose that leads to, and that is advocated by all of our delivery partners as well, in all of that they've been doing over the last 18 months during this period, and it will continue. It always is at the heart of the work that they do. So yeah.
Great to hear. How about you, Leslie Ann at the BBC?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been good. I mean, I think everything that Grace has kind of referred to, we've tried to do as well. I think that one of the things we did is we built a deliberate kind of a wellbeing session into all our kind of a monthly sessions with the young people. So we spend 15 minutes per group just talking about where are they now, what's going on with them, and just getting that temperature check every time we run a session. So we're really clear about actually how are they feeling in that moment, because actually that allows you to tweak some of the work beforehand. So you might have 30 minutes of work planned, but if everybody's had a really bad day at school, then nobody's going to settle and do 30 minutes of work. But let's talk through what's going on from a wellbeing perspective, and actually we'll still get good work out of them, but actually it might be in a different form, or it might be not as intense, the piece of work. And actually the young people have responded really well to that. And actually one of the things that's been beautiful to see is actually how much peer support they actually give each other in those sessions. We had a session just after Sarah Everard's murder, where the young women in the group were very passionate about what had happened, and actually the way they talked about it, so they were ranging between 14 and 18 as a group, 8 years old, so their perspectives were different, but actually how they supported each other, the nuance of that conversation, and actually how they kind of all worked through it to a collective position. It was an incredible experience to watch, and then to be able for us to be able to then feed that back to the youth workers to say, this is the conversation that took place last night, so you're absolutely cited on it. Here are the outcomes. Were we concerned? Were we not concerned? But these are the things you may want to check in with your young people on out the other side of that conversation, just to make sure that, you know, for a topic that's as heavy as that, nothing lingers with them, that they were able to kind of work through and process some of that in a local supported environment beyond the reach of the group.
Good to hear. And lastly, Dilys, how are you prioritising well-being for the young people that you work with?
I mean, yeah, again, very similar to Grace and Leslie Ann in terms of checking in. I mentioned earlier the WhatsApp group, which is it's a great group. In terms of that peer-to-peer support, you really see that coming out in those messages, the exchanges. Also, in terms of time, we give a lot of time to the activities or tasks, really, that our young people are working on. And what that means is, an activity that, could typically take a week, we allow it to take 3 weeks. We build that in. Also, in terms of the Future Voices group, they meet outside of schooling time, so usually in the evenings, and so that gives them space really to focus. And we don't make the meetings too long or drawn out, very short, snappy, hour and a half, getting straight to the point. So that's very much how we check in and support wellbeing. It's also great having the British Youth Council there, because they act as it's another body there that the young people can go to and to talk through any issues that they may not want to discuss with us, and vice versa.
It's great to hear that you all have great infrastructures in place that really support not just yourselves, but the young people, especially during this kind of time where we all need a little bit of extra support, a little extra care. We've got 2 questions from our audience. So we have got Ellie Carnage Brown. Hi, Ellie. Thank you for joining us. She says, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for a great talk. Does the panel think it's appropriate to pay young people for projects which take place during the school timetable on extracurricular? Whoever would like to jump on that, go ahead. No.
I just like to clarify, are the young people involved, are they doing it as part of the school project, or are they leading something as part of a young person coming into school?
I believe, I'm guessing it's maybe some kind of internal projects or things that the school might be running, or maybe you might have external organizations come as yourself come into the school, and maybe that's how I'm interpreting it. Ellie, if you are still tuned in, please clarify. We'll come back to this question, and I'll go to Izzy's question. She says, how does the panel differentiate between a free training course that is provided and paid time for young people within that framework? And she said this is in regards to limited funding available.
I'm happy to go. Sarita, you go. I always go.
So our we consider projects not fully funded until until every line in the budget is funded, and as part of that we build in a line to pay young people for all professional work that's delivered. So in terms of differentiating it between the free training sessions, the kind of the show that the producers create at the end and deliver, we pay them for that, a producer fee, and anything kind of additional like consultation or meetings, as I mentioned. But again, I appreciate it's really difficult as a charity ourselves. Kind of funding is at the core of how we can deliver our work, and so it's kind of us getting into the mindset that when we're creating new budgets for new projects, and it's kind of ensuring that we're building in the compensation for young people right from the beginning before the project even gets funded. I hope that answers your question.
Great. Anyone want to jump on the back of that?
Yeah, I'd like to add that when we look at the two differences, the free training programs, they're open to everyone who wants to come along that fits that age group. They're not just for those young people who are maybe leading or directing on a certain project of ours. That's built into their project, a bit like Sarisha was talking about. It's already budgeted in and built into what they're getting, and their fee is something we've budgeted for. But that free training program won't just be for those young people. It'll be open to a wider group of young people as well, to kind of help us differentiate between what they're being paid for their professional work and what we're offering as a training program open to others.
Great.
I mean, we would take it as more a blended reward approach, where actually if you were engaged in a training session with something we were doing, we would also expect you to be paid for your time for being there as well.
Okay, thank you. We're just going to return to Ellie's question. So the initial question was, does the panel think it's appropriate to pay young people for projects which take place during the school timetable? So to clarify, she said her organization would be leading the project and going into schools. The young people in question are the school children. So they will be taking part in the projects. Do you think it's appropriate to pay them?
I'll take this. Based on what's been said, I wouldn't have thought so, no, because they're going to be participants of your project as opposed to designing or leading on the project. So I wouldn't have thought it was appropriate to pay them, because I'm guessing the young people are the beneficiaries. And so, in that way, I wouldn't have thought it appropriate.
Yeah, I agree, especially because they're at school as well. Yeah, they're not doing anything extra or leading. So yeah, I would agree with that. Going off again, Izzy's commented and she says, thank you, Sarisha and Grace. I suppose it's almost like two phases. One, training, and then two would be producing. Our training would be expenses, etc. Do you agree? Grace is nodding.
Yeah, I do. I agree with that. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for your questions. Well, I hope we answered them clear enough for you. So thank you. And thank you very much for tuning in. This has been the morning show, and we'll be back again next Friday. What are we going to be talking about on Friday? We're going to be talking about practitioning. So that should be an interesting conversation. Once again, thank you to our guests, Grace, Dilys, Leslie, and Sarisha. And yes, we're going to leave it here. So thank you all for tuning in. We do have coming up next, we've got a surgery at 1 p.m. where you can drop in and you can elaborate on any topic. We've got another webinar with Wired for Music at 3 p.m. Nancy from Sound Connections will be talking about Funding 101. And if you tune in to the Wired for Music Instagram at 5 p.m, you'll be hearing all about funding opportunities for young people from Youth Music and ACE. So thank you very much for joining me, ladies. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
And can I just quickly throw out there, before we close, that we're looking for non-exec directors. So if anyone
Great. So make sure to, could you just let us know what the website is? So if anyone wants to.
Yes, www.youthfuturesfoundation.org.
Great. So if you're interested in a new job role, then please go and visit the website. Once again, thank you very much, ladies, for your time.